It's 7:30, and so I can call to order the legislative session of Swarthmore Borough Council for Monday, April 13th. I'm pleased to see that everyone is here except for Lauren. Is she expected? Do we know?
I believe so. She sent me a note like 10 minutes ago. So.
All right. Well, then shortly we'll have everyone in attendance. First order of business is public comment. Are there any members of the public who have anything to share with Borough Council? Please come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and let us hear what you have to say.
My name is Edmund Jones. I lived in Swarthmore here most of the time before you folks were even born. I don't come tonight to complain, but to point out to you an article in the Delaware County Daily Times. I don't know how many of you see it or not, but on the third page, the headline is, "Policing in the 21st Century Discussed in Swarthmore." I wouldn't particularly call it to your attention, except there's a very fine picture here of our Chief of Police, Brian Craig. And it quotes Brian Craig at some length in the article. As I said, I'm not going to attempt to read it to you, but I think that members of council might be interested in seeing it, reading at a later time.
Can I keep this copy? Or?
I don't need it back,
okay.
no. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Edmund. Any other public comment? All right, hearing none, public comment is closed. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on the land development plan for the Town Green Central Park project, which, as you know, is a terrific improvement in the vicinity of Borough Hall, an improvement of the areas surrounding the parking lot. We've had several presentations. I don't think we need a complete review, but for members of the public who are interested, there are plans that are on the website. Is that correct, Jane?
That is correct.
And
in the library too?
Mm-hmm. And this is a project that, while it's a borough project, it was conceived and will be financed by the very generous support of the Centennial Foundation, who we thank greatly for this. The public hearing is part of our process for the approval of any land development plan, and a proposal of this magnitude fits under the heading of land development. You all have copies, or have seen copies of the drawings. Are there any members of the public who have any comments at all about the proposed Town Green Central Park land development plan?
Yeah.
Please come forward.
Hi, my name's Janine Clare.
You can speak into the microphone. We'll be able to
Okay, my name's
broadcast
Janine
your
Clare.
comments
This
better.
is the first time I saw the orange notice that said that there was going to be a public meeting about this. I've looked at the plans. They are gorgeous. But am I to assume that this renewal of this area is to bring more people into Swarthmore? Or is it just to make Swarthmore more pleasing aesthetically? And the reason I ask is, I'm already hooked on Swarthmore. I don't live here. I live in Morton, but I bank here. I get my hair done here. I belong to the co-op. I get coffee here. I take knitting lessons. I go to the Spotlight Theater. And the fact is I'm not getting any younger. So availability of parking and proximity to where my final destination is important. And I've already run into situations where I've come and this lovely little parking lot is full. You have to go round and round. So you've already lost, at this time, I don't know if it's permanent, 8 parking spaces closer to the train station. And now when I look at this plan, it looks like 8 more spots are going. And there are 3 of the remaining spots that I believe are public service, which they should be. But I'm concerned. I'm concerned that you're taking so much parking out that it won't be fun to come here anymore. And that's all I wanted to say.
Well, we appreciate your comments very much. And you and members of the public can be assured that parking is a matter that's been discussed at great length in council, in particular in the Public Safety Committee, and for those who attended or listened to last week's Borough Council meeting, there was an extensive discussion and a vote on changes to our parking regime. So parking is certainly something that Borough Council is very sensitive to, and we are continuing our efforts to strike the right balance. Any other public comment? Any members of the public have anything else to say in connection with the land development plan? All right, if there are no other public comments, I guess, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, the right procedure would be to call for a vote on, is this preliminary approval or we don't?
This is a combined preliminary fund, right? And you don't need to call it right now. You can just close public comment on this and deal with it when you get to it on the agenda, or you can call the question now, whichever you want.
Let's do it when we reach it on the agenda. Next item on our agenda is consideration of our meeting minutes for March 9 and April 6. They've been circulated by email to everybody. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for March 9 and April 6?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments, corrections?
I have one minor proof, but I'll get which name on it was a spelling.
I just had a clarification maybe that would help under general government for April 6th. It says the committee does not suggest using social media. I think maybe you mean recommend. It's not recommend. Using social media.
Probably
It
better
just
use of
might
the
be
word.
a better word, that's all.
Recommend instead of suggest.
Yeah, is that okay?
All right. Any other?
And what was the, do you remember?
It was the opposite. The sentence expressed the opposite of what it intended to. That's the only reason I remember. I'll take it up and send it to you.
Sounds like it's not a substantive.
It sounds like
Yeah.
a
No, it's a
proofreading.
proofread. It's a
Sounds-
proofread.
Thank you.
All right, well, with Lauren's suggested change and the proofreading correction that David offered, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, the environment. Lauren.
Nothing except to say that there's a cleanup at Little Crum Creek Park on April 25th in the morning, if you want to come.
25th.
Could I-
Spring.
Could I ask you to just briefly update us on where we are with the bamboo ordinance that was the subject of some
Pretty much
discussion?
the same as last week. We're definitely going to meet our committee. David and I are going to meet March 28th at 7 o'clock to go over some of the recommended changes, and we'll bring it again before council, and hopefully we'll be finished some way or another after this next month.
All right, so any members of the public interested in the bamboo issue are invited to attend that meeting, and we look forward to seeing something on it in April. Next, finance. Michael.
Thanks, Ralph. Yeah, let's start with the financial report for the end of the first quarter, March 31st. I guess the first thing to point out is that the revenues, particularly for this year, look low relative to last year, and after some investigation, it turns out that I believe April 2nd, the borough cashed $537,000 in property tax. So there's just a bit of a delay. So if you put that number into the revenues or add that on, you're at about 72.4%, which is basically right in line with where we were last year, and basically as expected. So there is a big discrepancy there, but it should be rectified by next month. And the ending cash balance was $2,494,860. Any questions on the financial report?
Thank you for updating that, because that was the one thing I noticed on the report. I'm like, wow, we're way off on tax collection. So.
Yeah, we had it. Yeah, it took a little bit of investigation, but that's where it is. So now I'm going to move on to the wire transactions for March. I'd like to make a motion to approve the wire transfers of $4,649.14. And also, I guess, under the transactions to ratify 2 credit card purchases for the GoPro equipment for $540.96 and $432.59.
Is there a second? Second. All right, any questions, discussion about the wire transfers to ratify? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're approved.
Okay. And then 2 separate motions, because there's 3 bills that didn't make it into the other transaction. So first, I'd like to make a motion to approve bills to pay of $616,786.71. Hopefully everyone's got a chance to look at the ones that they're responsible for.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion, questions?
I have one little question.
Yeah.
On page 2, I was wondering, the first item is 4 items of Borough Swarthmore special checks. What are those?
We have a small checking account that we only requires a single signature, and every once in a while it needs to be reimbursed, and it gets reimbursed to specific accounts. So there's still a trail. What was it spent on travel or whatever?
I just
So it's
threw them,
putting-
they were 4 small.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's putting
they're
them up-
not big, I was just,
Right.
I've
paying
never
that
seen,
account
I
back.
hadn't noticed it crop up before, so I was.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't. We don't use it very often
Yeah.
because we tend to want to do a signature, but once in a while we need to do that.
Any other questions, comments? If not, all in favor of approving the bills to pay, please say aye.
Aye.
You're approved.
There's also 3 more that got added on that I'd like to approve as well. The first is for $500.
It's $250 actually.
So it's $250, okay, so that's for 1 meeting, okay. For the videotaping of this meeting, or meeting last month. And then also, there's a bill for delivery for salt, $300 because we had to go get it. And then the actual payment for the salt itself of $1,228.42. Three different bills, one for the video, $250, one for the delivery of the salt, which is $300, and then finally for the salt itself, $1,228.42. I'd like to make a motion to approve those 3 bills.
Is there a second? Second. Questions, discussion? All in favor of approving the payment of those 3 bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, bills are approved.
And that is all. No meeting for finances.
Thank you. General government, David.
Rafa, nothing new to report from last week. We will meet this month on the 20th at 8:30 a.m. And I guess one note for Borough Council is that we have an ongoing review of salary benefits for the Borough of Swarthmore. And one of, I guess, the more interesting points, we have a draft of it and there's not a lot of changes. But one of them might be that we would offer benefits. Right now, as it was passed and was policy for 2014, you needed to work a minimum of 35 hours for us to offer you benefits. I don't know if that is necessarily a requirement anymore. I think the culture has changed, and it might be something to consider that we offer benefits for a lesser amount or a number under that. So we'll talk about that. And there's other smaller points to review, but that's kind of one of the major ones.
And your meeting is scheduled for?
The 20th at 8:30, right here.
Do you want to talk about that meeting?
Yes, we could offer an update on that. I believe it might have just posted just now.
3 minutes ago.
That is an update, I'll tell you. So Jane, after Mr. Groves and at our last meeting, talking about getting a better way to record and push our meetings out to the public. We have a professional in the room. It is now on YouTube. The link is on our borough website.
Is the link on the website working? Wow.
The next step would be, it won't even link you to YouTube, it'll just play from our website. So that'll be the real hip thing if we get to that level.
I don't think that's true. I think it's always going to go to YouTube.
It'll always go
isn't it?
down to YouTube.
Well, you click on the YouTube icon
Uh-huh.
on the website, and then it takes you to our page, our YouTube page,
Ah.
which is on the website, and then it'll say click here, and then you click, and then all the meetings will come up, and then you pick which meeting.
Very cool.
So that's what it's doing right now. That's,
Yeah.
I think that's as far
I'm
as.
updating you as I'm being
Last
updated.
week's will be on.
Is
That's the
last
one
week
she
being
put
the
on.
first?
It's
first
on.
It's the
one?
first,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Well, actually.
Actually, the one we did with the GoPros on there,
Okay.
I just didn't have enough time to get it all.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And it's a great video. Take a look at what Dave did. It'll
So
be
it's incumbent
very
upon the public,
professional.
we talked about how we're going to communicate. We're going to communicate through the borough website, but anybody that wants to click and paste that link, have at it.
Yeah.
You can spread it virally throughout
Nothing wrong.
whatever social media you'd like to.
I think it's terrific that the borough's finding more ways to get the word out there. We've
Correct.
redesigned the website. We have more accessible meetings. Not that everybody in town wants to sit through all the meetings, but there are lots of different ways to find out what's going on in town, whether it's parking, bamboo, finance, or whatever.
It's good stuff.
Is it also being broadcast on our old-fashioned channels?
Well, Dave was here
You mean
about, we
TV?
met with
Yes.
Comcast today.
We are working on
That is what I meant.
TV, yeah, we met with Comcast today. Dave came, he spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's not working on that link. We actually were chatting before the meeting, and I may actually just call our Comcast person and ask if we can get an updated system. He works in media, so he's pretty familiar with that one. So the answer is yes, eventually, not right now, but yes.
Because I have had some
Exactly.
conversations when I've
So I
run into
understand, yeah.
some citizens in town who have really
Right.
said, I don't think I want to
Well, if they have it-
necessarily go to YouTube, I want to see it the old way.
Right, well, they could borrow the DVD if they want. I mean, if that's, yeah, maybe they don't have it.
I think we have it on reel to reel too.
It's a valid,
It's
it's a
very
valid point.
valid.
Yeah.
Considering our
Yeah.
aging police task force.
Right.
And it is.
In its beta
right.
format.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely part of our goal. We just aren't together with that.
Well, we can assure members of the public that there are lots of ways to stay informed, and we hope that they all do.
That's all I have.
All right, David, thank you. Next on our agenda, planning and zoning, Elizabeth.
Okay, so last week we went over all this material fairly thoroughly, I think. I think that it's a great project. I also wanted to comment that in reference to Janine's comment, we are losing 5 parking spaces in the borough lot in this project. But we've also, in terms of parking overall in the borough, we've upped some of the numbers of our 2-hour spaces where you might not have expected to find them in the past, but along Myers Avenue, close to the train station, across from Hobbs, you'll find some, and hopefully that will start picking up some of the more rapid turnover that we'd love to see when people like you come into town and use all our shops and so on.
I do have a question. You say you're only losing 5 spots? When I look at your blueprint, there are 4 that would be removed by the extension of the park. And it appears, from what I'm seeing on the blueprint, that you will miss at least the one that comes and faces the library, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 more when you move the land out for the amphitheater, which is 8. It's not 5. So what am I not seeing?
Well, there are another 3 that are actually not within the main part of the lot, but are off of Lafayette, essentially, right down there.
And could I suggest, not to cut you off, but because this is a public meeting, not an informal conversation, we're going to continue with our agenda, but please understand, members of Borough Council are very interested in speaking to groups on a one-to-one basis, and so if you're here at the end of the meeting, I'm sure Elizabeth will be glad to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
I guess essentially, we discussed this fairly thoroughly last week. Nothing has really changed. The updated plans that we have already had from last week, already from Tim's office, already reflected a lot of the comments that Delaware County had made, and Pannoni had made, and Planning Commission had made. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the land development application for the town green / Central Park.
I would like to second that motion.
All right, any discussion?
If I might, just a comment on the parking. It should be noted that the parking spaces that will be there, although we lose a few, will be wider spaces and appropriately sized spaces compared to the ones that are there presently. That creates a problem, particularly if oversized vehicles are parked in the spaces. And also, it's my understanding that no decision has been made that those which are presently segregated for official use will be so segregated in the future.
I just have a procedural question, just so I'm clear. I don't know, maybe Elizabeth, you know the answer to this, or we should ask Bob. But is this the only approval that Borough Council needs to give to this project, or is there another step after we advertise
There's 3 more. This is the last on the land development plans. The next would be to approve bid documents. That will require a council vote. There will be this agreement with the Centennial Foundation. And the 4th item is, give me a second, the wording of the bid. You're going to have wording the contract for the work.
And so the bid documents would even be more specific than what we have in front of us?
They're much more
Yes.
detailed.
Yes, exactly. They will have, there'll be a full construction set that we'll actually also send to the borough engineer at that point, prior to putting it out to bid. So if he has any comments, he can bring those to our attention.
And we're approving that because we're the owner of the project.
Yes.
It's not the kind of approval that we would approve for projects owned by other people.
That's correct.
This level of what we're doing tonight is what we would do for
anybody.
other land
And the
development.
that next one where you're approving bid documents is because you're the owner. If it were
Exactly,
for a
exactly.
college project or co-op extension, we're
Okay.
not in that level of detail.
I was just going to say, I normally do not distribute an entire set of bid documents to everyone on council. Remember, we go out to bid every year on street projects and storm sewer projects, so we'll try and figure out how we can, I mean, they're usually a pretty substantial.
I'm fine with whatever we get.
Yeah.
I'm originally having one set available
Yeah,
in the office.
I'll get everything I can electronically, but some of them may be a little hard to read, so. But I'll let you know when they are in process.
All right, so the motion is to approve the land development plan for Town Green Central Park as it's been circulated to everyone. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Land development is approved.
Then the next item relating to the same project is to get authorization to advertise for bids. We're in a this is a fairly tight time frame in terms of trying to get the project started when, I guess in June, ideally, late June? Early July. But we're trying to maximize that quiet time, July, August, in Swarthmore, so that we're not disrupting the downtown parking situation any more than we have to. That's the ideal time to do it. So if we can give authorization to advertise the bids, then that's in place for whenever they're ready to go out, and we don't have to wait for one of our council meetings to do it in the future. So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the advertising of bids for the Town Green / Central Park project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, any discussion?
Can I just make sure I understand how this is consistent with what I just said, which is that bid docs are going to be subject to another council review or approval. if you want to be able to have them advertised prior to the next council meeting, is that the goal? Because, I mean, once they're out, what you advertise, we're going to have to live with. So if council wants an additional level of review and detail.
I guess my understanding was that probably we're not talking about advertising it before the May council meetings. It was sort of basically getting this out of the way so that when they are ready, which might be very soon after that.
Okay, so if they're ready before, after the work session.
Right, because the advertising is going to take, they have to be advertised twice. And you have to, allow time for the bid process itself, the bidders to put together their bids. So, I don't know, Tim, Jane, do we
In the
Do we
past,
think
we
it's
get,
going
for all of
to-
our projects, when we get authorization to advertise, it's a different step that you're throwing in there if you actually want to approve the bid documents. Normally, it's the engineer says
Right.
we're ready to go, and
Right.
they go, so you don't see it again until you're awarding the bid. So
So,
if you're comfortable with the usual process, you just say we
I
want
think
to
that-
review them, because otherwise it is going to be a little
I think,
slow.
what we were working out was that because our borough engineer would be reviewing the bid documents, I think we should be having his comments come before borough council.
I mean, that would be
Otherwise,
unusual, because,
right.
I mean, you don't have it on the other stuff that he does. I realize this is
No,
a
I know
different
that, I
project.
know that, it's
In
only
fact, I
because
think
of
your
this
comments are
project.
probably more important for council's review than his comments are going to be. Because he's not going to redesign this project. He's just going to
No,
make sure that
he's just gonna
that's,
look that it's
yeah.
flesh it out.
a fleshed out bid document.
Can I ask two questions on this? One, do the bid documents have to be available at the time that we advertise?
No, you could delegate that to the engineer to do.
But he means, once the ad is in, you usually say they're available.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
I thought you
yeah.
meant to
The ad
vote to
says,
it.
yeah.
And so my second question, I don't know, maybe it's a question for Elizabeth, is what kinds of changes or issues could we anticipate between this set of drawings and the bid documents that would be something that Borough Council should really get involved in?
Can I throw
Sure.
something in there?
Go ahead.
The thing about the bid documents is that they're going out for public bid, so there will be, the drawings are prepared, they'll be prepared in probably 3 separate bid packages with slightly different scopes of work in the different bid packages. Because we have X number of dollars and we don't have any idea about what the actual pricing we're going to get on things.
So you do an alternative.
So you do alternatives within the bidding thing. So the biggest changes might occur depending upon where the bids are coming in terms of whether we can. So when we're going to work with Jane to develop those kinds of bid packages to determine how that kind of works. And that'll probably have the single biggest impact upon what the final project winds up being.
If I understand you correctly, you're talking about a situation where you bid 100% of the project, but then in the event that it's way over budget, you maybe carve out a portion of it for a more modest. And is there something that
It was a roll call council.
who would do that,
Yeah.
and what are the kinds of options that come to mind? Just so we have an idea of
So
what.
we do this all the time. Every bid document we send out often will have those alternates in there. just
Oh,
because-
I
yeah.
understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
asking,
So from a scope point of view, there are things like, say, the bluestone capping on the walls. That's a dollar amount that's worth a significant amount of money. And we could do an alternate where we did it with, say, wood seats instead of the stone seats. Something we wouldn't prefer not to do, but something that we could do in a way that would make it work. Another one that comes to mind are things like the driveway entrances and the crosswalks that are shown with the street print material, if they're embossed and then the coating get put on and things like that. So they don't need to be that. I mean, we still function.
So what I'm hearing is that the kinds of changes at that stage would be in finishes or materials, not in the overall structure or function of the project.
No.
Yeah.
It
So
wouldn't be the
it's-
scope of the project, you're talking about the aesthetics.
Yeah, so it's not clear to me that council needs to weigh in on that. Elizabeth, do you think otherwise?
The only, because it's a, because we're in that unique situation where it's also our project, both in terms of what those carve-outs might end up being, or just basic construction, so forth. And we do want our borough engineer to look at the final set of documents. I thought that if the borough engineer was looking at them and making any comments similar to, you know, the comments that he gives us on land development.
You won't.
Could I make a
Because
suggestion?
he doesn't, let me just clarify for Elizabeth. He's got a specific set of criteria that he's looking at. There are no specific criteria. This is a design. So he might be looking, maybe one last look to make sure the parking's back. I mean, he's, you know, but that's different. I mean, that would be a review, and then you look at his review and you incorporate, or you don't incorporate his comments. I don't think he would have any comfort level as the design engineer.
I'm not talking about the design. I'm saying he's made comments at land development stage we're at right now, about stormwater details and that kind of thing. Isn't he going to want to look over the final bid document and make sure that his
Yes,
his comments have been satisfied?
Yes, but there's no action item on behalf of council. It's a review. It's like a building inspector reviewing it. That would be enough.
Now, if I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
It seems to me the situation presented, although this is, well, it is not unlike the fact that when we bid paving, then we do it in conjunction with other municipalities. We know how much we want to spend, but we don't know what the bids are going to come in as. And so it becomes necessary, once the bids are received, to make decisions about whether particular streets will or will not be included because there is or is not enough money to do it. And that's not so much a review, but the monitoring of those decisions is made by the Public Works, Parks, and Recreation Committee. And so what I suggest is, rather than having council as a whole monitor this process going forward as it relates to the Town Green project, that your committee be our eyes and our voice, rather than having those kinds of decisions come back here. And both because I don't know that we're all necessarily, I speak personally, competent to have an opinion about some of them, and secondly, I think it will take time that need not be taken for the process.
David, I'm confident that you're competent to have an opinion on it.
But no, I'll have an opinion, but I may not be competent.
But could I just suggest a slight variation, that we authorize the advertisement of bids, and with the proviso that the bid documents be satisfactory to the chair of chair of planning and zoning, after consultation with borough engineer.
That's perfect.
And in the event that the chair of planning and zoning feels that there's an issue that's worthy of bringing to council, she can. And otherwise, if she's satisfied, it'll just go out to bid.
That was a perfect way.
Okay, will you accept that amendment?
That's fine.
All right. With that amendment, the motion is to approve the advertisement of bids. Is there any other questions? Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Project is approved for the advertising for bids.
And then the only other thing on my agenda is that there will be a planning commission meeting this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. and they will be reviewing the preliminary and final combined land development application for a project, small pavilion project at the college, and also looking at a sketch plan review for a larger college project that is a building that will be built to take over some of the science functions while the more major science building is built down the line. So that's their agenda this Wednesday at 7:30. Planning and Zoning Committee will meet this month, and that's Tuesday, April 28th at 7:30 a.m. And we'll be just reviewing what the Planning Commission comes up with on their meeting in 2 days. We'll also be continuing our discussion on institutional zoning ordinance revisions. And that's...
Before you move on, could I go back to the Town Green project for a minute? I had distributed this memorandum of understanding between the Borough and the Centennial Foundation. I have not heard back from them as to whether it's acceptable to them, but I would suggest maybe a vote to authorize approval, if it's acceptable to council, authorize approving it tonight, so that if they come back and find it acceptable, that we can have that done before the next meeting. And you might want to also make it conditioned, if they have any changes, we could do the same thing, where either Elizabeth or I decides whether they're acceptable or they need to come back to council.
I'd like to make a motion according to exactly what Bob just said.
To approve the memorandum of understanding subject to the, how about mutual satisfaction of the chair of planning and zoning and the solicitor.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Has everyone had an opportunity to read it? Any discussion, any questions? Bob, I think it's a good piece of work.
Thanks.
All in favor of approving the memo of understanding with the Centennial Foundation, subject, of course, to Elizabeth and Bob approving any proposed changes, please say aye.
Aye.
The memo of understanding is approved.
Jane, is that something we post? Is that document available to public?
We certainly can when it's final.
When it's final.
I tend not to like to distribute something there.
In a draft form?
Yeah, because
Sure.
it can lead to a lot of misunderstanding if it ends up not being the final one.
I actually do have one other quick update item, and that is that the Aging in Place Task Force is moving right along. They had some weather issues with their meeting in February, but they've accomplished a lot. The subcommittees are accomplishing a lot. They're starting to schedule some special forums that will be open to the public and well advertised in the Swarthmore on different topics, and hoping to get public comment during those occasions. So that's where that is. And that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Elizabeth. David, before I call on you for public safety, and I'm sure you'll update us on how the parking changes are doing, among other things, as I promised, I do have a little whimsical presentation to you in recognition of all your efforts. I was at one of my favorite dining establishments recently, the kind that awards you a little bit of philosophy as a reward for your meal. And I received this one, which I should read. Maybe I'll have it framed afterwards. But it says, "A real patriot is the fellow who gets a parking ticket and rejoices that the system works." So with that sentiment,
What are the odds?
with that sentiment, my heartfelt thanks.
Thank you, Ralph. I'm very touched. I'm going to treasure this. But, of course, I should point out that what we're doing with parking in the borough really has nothing to do with parking tickets per se. In other words, we're not trying to write more tickets or to generate more revenue. We're just trying to come up with a system that we think works better for those who are visiting our town, those who are commuting and merely passing through, and those who live and work here as well. And speaking of which, I don't really have an update on the parking situation per se. Some of us have been kind of informally following the past week and a half or so what appears to be happening with the parking situation. One thing that I find, I'm not sure what it means yet, but one thing I find especially interesting is that the 24-hour spots that we created, there are 10 on Park Avenue and 10 on Dartmouth Avenue, have pretty much been unoccupied every single morning. I mean, there have been a few spots taken here and there, but they're pretty much empty. Again, I don't know what the significance of that is.
By what time, David?
Anywhere between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the morning, in that sort of 2-hour period. One thing I've noticed is that there are people parking even further down Park Avenue in non-metered spots, and also on South Princeton, non-metered spots. So I don't know whether the primary motivation is to simply avoid paying anything for parking, or if the fact that the 4-hour meter, we don't have the mobile pay platform up yet, so the 4-hour meters can't be renewed remotely. You've got to do it with quarters. If that has something to do with it, I don't know. So it would be pure speculation on my part. But what's interesting is that that's something that I've noticed. I've also noticed a lot of open 2-hour spots throughout the Ville. Again, I'm not sure what that means. But the mobile pay platform, I think we're getting closer, are we not, Jane, to having that rolled out, and that'll be a big event, which, again, realistically speaking, it's going to take people time to adjust to that and to adapt to that. So we shouldn't be, too quick to judgment. The Public Safety Committee will meet this month on Tuesday, April 21st at 7:30 p.m. And I'm sure that parking one way or another will be on the agenda. And we certainly encourage, anyone who's interested in issues associated with parking in the borough to come to that meeting. And there's always a public comment period. And we'd love to hear your comments. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Thank you.
David, if I might comment just briefly, excuse me for talking too much as always, but I have gone to the website of Passport, which is the supplier, the provider of the system we will be using, and other people can as well, and look at the demo programs there, and it will be a very easy app to use. You have to have a smartphone to use it, but it's very easy to use, and it will, once you enter the license number of your car into it, which you're required to do, and then I think the meter number, and then pick how much time per the unit you want to take at that time. It will thereafter remember the license numbers of up to 3 cars, so that's not something you have to keep doing each time you use the system. But I think once that is available and more generally used, then I don't think it will take people much time at all who are inclined to use smartphones in that way, much time at all, to figure out how to use it and to use it. And we may find, for example, those spots that are down on the side of Hobbs over there that are 4 hours that will come to be used by people who want to go into town for 6 hours. And the way this works is that if you're in a 4-hour spot and paid for 4 hours, 10 minutes before that time is up, you will get a text message from your phone that you can now add up to a like amount of time. And so people who have gone off but don't know quite when they'll get back will be able to do that. But also, it will prevent you from, once that time is expired, from, again, parking at that meter by that means. So I think it will be a rather simple system for people to use who are inclined to use smartphones to do things like that. And it'll give perhaps a better sense of what meters are going to be used by different people for different purposes during a day.
Very good. David, now in your capacity as Chair of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, do you have anything to report?
We will meet this month in this room at 8 o'clock in the morning on April 23rd. Presently, the draft agenda includes the discussion of the 2015 paving program, discussion of Little Crump Creek Park and some work that might be done there or recommended to be done there, an update of floodplain management regulations, particularly building within a floodplain, an ordinance regulating the use of borough parks and recreation areas, which we've talked about before, and we have a draft ordinance that we will be considering, and such other business as may properly come before that meeting. Again, in this room on April 23rd at 8 o'clock in the morning.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ralph. First, I just wanted to say that I'm personally appreciative of the past on things for the town green at Central Park. It's a project that, in a true Swarthmore fashion, has been coming for a long time, and the kernels of it were 15 years ago when we were discussing the town center revitalization as a way of helping the borough and number one, creating a usable space in town for residents. There's a lot of changes that have happened in Swarthmore over the last year and a half, and we'll continue to do so. And I'm confident that we are just improving on our life here in the borough. That's pretty much what I have to say on that. I am meeting with, town center people and merchants, some about parking, some about other things, other about access issues and things like that. So those are ongoing discussions that I'm having mostly in the house, but some of them informally. Sometimes I just leave David there to talk for me. Has worked well in the past. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Jane, Borough Manager's report.
I just have a few updates. I'll keep it very brief. Thank you. If you look on the manager's report, some of the meetings from last month, I did go with the chief, who's not here today, to the Emergency Services Center. There is a Delta alert system that many of you already use, and they're updating to a new system that will be very parallel to the Code Red that we had sort of thought about using, but decided to go with the free system instead. It will have that access and a database that they'll find for notifying people by text. So it hasn't been instituted yet, but it was exciting to hear that they're moving in that direction, and that we probably made the right decision not to sign a long-term contract with Code Red. Meeting on here about the FEMA floodplain regulations. The Department of Community and Economic Development has done a great job working with the federal government to assist municipalities in creating a new floodplain ordinance, so we should have that for the Public Works Committee ready to go. On March 25th, there was a pre-construction meeting. The contract for the viaduct, which we all call the trestle, has been given to Walsh Construction. I think they've actually, for those of you who are down in the meadow, you'll see that they've already been doing a lot of staging. They're in a very tight time frame to get it done. And as you heard before, they're basically building the bridge parallel to the existing bridge. And then that bridge will come down and the new bridge will become active. And it will be that same period of closure that we had heard about before, where in the summer of 2016, there'll be a 3-month period where this will be the end of the line, and parking will be, not great, and there's probably not a lot we can do during that period. But Nether Providence is way more impacted than we are. Most of the access in and out of the site is through Nether Providence. You may see some of their trucks actually using the roundabout and the access road to get in that way. So it's, I think it's a $60 million project in the end to replace it. And they are taking down the old bridge. There were people who asked if there was any way they could save. The stone pillars are just beautiful. And anybody who wants one is welcome to them. They think each stone weighs about 2,000 pounds. So they're not really too mobile. But they were asked because it is so old and significant historically, they have to create a little picture book and documentation that will be in all the libraries of what the original viaduct looked like, which I think is nice. So we'll have some memory of it. And then the last thing on there was, I think you were at the training section with Passport when they came in to show how to use it. So we're ready to go. We've ordered the stickers. They're loading all of our information, and I really don't think it'll be very long before we go on that.
Progress continues.
Yes. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jane. Bob, anything?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
Any other business to come before council?
Actually, I have one quick question for Jane.
I'm sorry, what?
When Passport is online available, how are we going to be advertising that?
Well, they have a lot of promotional materials, which I haven't seen yet. So I would guess that there will be things for the newspaper. We'll put things on our website. They actually give us, as part of the program, signs that will go up, so there'll be a brand. And then I'm sure people will put it on next door Swarthmore once it goes out. So that's part of the program, because they need people to use it. That's how they make money, so they'll take care of that.
Could you review for those who are tuned in from Radio Land, what the economics of this, how much they make, how the money flows, how much they get for providing the system to us? I do not remember.
They don't get anything from the borough. In other words, the taxpayers of Swarthmore pay nothing.
They get a share of the...
They get a service fee from each individual who uses the service every time you use it. So that's how they generate revenue.
It's 35 cents, correct?
It's 35 cents per transaction.
So it's not something you'd use for a half-hour parking?
No, and of course, you would, that's right. And of course, as we all know, the 30-minute meters anyway are not renewable in any case. But theoretically, you could park at a 4-hour meter for 10 minutes if you wanted to. Right. Wouldn't make a lot of sense unless you were a law-abiding citizen who was more than happy to contribute to the common weal and you didn't happen to have any change on you. In which case, you could still use your smartphone and stay within the limits of the law.
Right.
Just thought I would follow up on Ralph's point there.
Any other business to come before council?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you. We're adjourned.